I watch some of the shows. I watched Liz McDonald. She's fantastic. I watched Lou Dobbs last night, Sean Hannity last night, Tucker last night, Laura. I watched Fox and Friends in the morning. You watch these shows.
That was a new ad on Joe Biden's official Twitter account, absolutely savaging Donald Trump. And I think it's an effective ad. As we saw yesterday and today, Donald Trump has just been awful in front of the camera, totally on the defensive after we all found out that he was basically lying about COVID severity to the American people while he was telling the truth in his candid interviews and discussions with Bob Woodward. And here yesterday, he's bragging about how he watches literally 8 hours of Fox News yesterday, 480 minutes. And what you can see in that video is as Trump lists all the shows he watches, everything from Tucker Carlson to Fox and Friends in the morning, you can see the counter rise, but also the counter of the number of Americans that have lost their lives due to COVID-19, at least in part because Donald Trump never publicly acknowledged the severity of the crisis. And I think this really does demonstrate that Donald Trump is, one, misleading the people, which I don't think anyone can dispute now, given the clear audio recordings we have. But two, he's more concerned about what Fox News is saying about him, talking about him. He's so obsessed with his own vanity and ego and media coverage that he's literally spending 1/3 of the entire day watching television. If he sleeps for 8 hours a day, probably give or take, that means half of his waking hours are spent watching Fox News. And sure, he can multitask, I guess, but what that tells me is that when Donald Trump should be working 20 hours a day, 18 hours a day, 16 hours a day, 12 hours a day, nonstop on solving and mitigating this crisis, he's more concerned about absorbing media that's largely tailor-made to make him feel good about himself. And I also think, and this is something I've definitely noticed, the most effective Joe Biden ads are ones that don't include a whole lot of Joe Biden. Because I think Joe Biden is, in a sense, a weakness to the Biden campaign, at least in his current state of health and fitness. I think that the whole point of the Biden campaign, and when they're strongest, is when they lean in to the very clear weaknesses of Donald Trump. And this is one of their more effective ads. We see what happens when they try to be more affirmative and go in the spaces. The disastrous Ducklo interview, Biden's national press secretary, who couldn't even admit that Biden sometimes uses teleprompters earlier tonight on Fox News, with Bret Baier. But this was really good. This really does show that Joe Biden is leaning into the idea that, look, you might not like me, and this is what he noted on social media. You might not like me all the time, you might not agree with me all the time, but I'm going to work hard for you, and I'm not going to spend 8 hours of my taxpayer-funded day for the next 4 years watching the news.